Hello,
Hi, how are
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
you? I'm good, I'm good. I'm Utkarsh from India, and you're?
I'm Ola from England.
Okay, all are from England. So right now you're in England, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So basically, I'm an English spoken tutor. So in India, I was thinking about many things, how we can actually work on them, how we can improve. For example, we have heard a lot that people, native speakers are really good while they speak. They focus more
Mm-hmm.
on the stress level, pauses, pronunciation, and all those things. So,
Mm-hmm.
as a tutor in India, I also wanted to have opinion on these things as well of a native speaker. So, what would you like to tell me about these things?
Oh, in terms of when people are learning English and what they
Hmm.
focus on. To be honest, I think it depends on where you come from
Yeah.
because like most of my students are Chinese, Korean, and
Hmm.
Korean students, for example, they have a lot of issue with and r sounds. So
Hmm.
in that sense, I think for Korean students, they need to focus on like the stress level of how much stress they're putting on certain things. Sometimes
Hmm.
they want to say a word that starts with an R, but they'll say it with an L sound. And so
Okay.
things like that's what I usually try to focus on with my Korean students. Another thing is that there's no articles in the Korean language. So a lot of the time when Korean students are speaking, they miss words like
Hmm.
the and a, or they'll say it too much. And it's like
Okay.
I'm going to the home. I'm going, instead of saying I'm going home, they'll say I'm going to the home. And it's like,
Okay.
no, you don't need to put
Yeah.
the,
So,
yeah.
what would be your basic tips? For example, let's say if you are teaching a student in England, let's say. Okay. So what is the basic thing you will start with? He is a newborn person, or let's say he has started learning English. Is it fine for them to focus on English, or they are just well prepared when it comes to English? Native speakers.
So do you mean like when somebody is an advanced learner?
Yeah, advanced learner, or he is in a foreign country where their primary language is English. So
Mm.
their main focus is on learning English, or just they are well prepared with English.
Um, I would say that if you as if they are if English is not their first language and they are in a country where English is the dominant language, then
Exactly.
um try to communicate with lots of with native speakers. Of
Hmm.
course, it's also good to learn English every now and again, but I think it
Hmm.
would be a lot more useful for them to just focus on speaking, communicating with native speakers, because that will help them to understand how native speakers speak. Because the way that we speak is not the
Hmm.
same, like it's not as it's written in like
Hmm.
in the textbooks.
Hmm.
So a lot of the time, especially with advanced learners, when they begin to communicate with native speakers, they are trying to use everything that they've learned from like textbooks to communicate, and so they find those flaws. And so I think for advanced learners, when they are in a English speaking country, focus more on communication with native speakers. That's just my advice anyway for them, because
Okay.
it would be more effective for them that way.
Okay. Okay. So it is basically they have to focus just how much they can communicate to other people, how
Yeah,
much they can talk to other people. That would be
yeah,
really helpful, right? Yeah.
yeah.
And how? Yeah. Let's say how anyone can work on their fluency level, how to speak to. I mean, not too fast or not too slow. How to avoid the rushing part in your spoken.
Oh,
For
yeah.
example, your English is natural. You are too calm and relaxed while you're speaking. So that's how to do that.
Ah, I usually speak quite fast. But when
Okay,
I'm
but
teaching,
mhm.
I have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
slow down. I mean,
exactly, exactly.
yeah. But I think that is something that again has to do with where you come from, because Indian
Hmm.
students speak very fast,
Hmm.
but
Okay.
you find, yeah, so it doesn't matter if
Hmm.
they're speaking English or if they're speaking like Hindi. Indian students always speak really fast. So again, I think when it
Okay.
comes to the speed, fluency, it kind
Hmm.
of has a lot to do with where you come from. And
Hmm.
another thing is, if you take into consideration, like Korean, Japanese, and Chinese students, in their cultures, they have a lot of honorifics. So, like when you're speaking to somebody who's older than you have to kind of, take a step back and let that person speak. So for them, they automatically, even though they're speaking to a native speaker, they still keep those rules in mind. So they
Exactly.
would
Got
always
Mhm.
slow down if they're speaking to someone who is older than them or somebody who is in a higher position than them. So it's kind of an it's automatic for them to always speak slower. But then when they're
Okay.
communicating with somebody who's in the same age group, then they might be a bit more,
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
when it
So
comes to
you have many
fluency,
students from India.
hmm?
You have students from
um,
India.
I've had a few students from India, but I've heard from a
So
lot of my
mhm.
Korean students, because my Korean students, some of them work in like
Okay.
industries where they have to communicate with Indians. And my
Indians.
Korean students always tell me, Indian people speak very fast. How can I, understand them? Help me understand them. And I'm just like, I am not Indian. I can't but yes, I've had a few Indian students, but whenever I
Mhm.
spoke to my Indian students, they always spoke very calmly and very slowly. So I'm a bit
Mhm.
like, is it just a regional thing that maybe like only certain groups of Indians
No,
speak
it
fast?
depends from basic to advanced. A basic speaker to advanced speaker.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
the Indian students that you had, what problems you thought that they were having in their spoken English?
what my Indian students.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what
Mm,
they really needed to work
um, confidence is something that I feel like they all
on. Hmm.
have to work on, because the first thing they'll always say to me, I don't believe in myself. I'm very shy. And so the lesson goes from an English lesson to a confidence lesson when I'm having to help them, boost their confidence. Like, you don't have to worry about making mistakes, because even native speakers make mistakes. And if you make
Okay.
a mistake, here's the thing, somebody with common sense will still be able to understand you, and they're not going to point it out like, la,
Exactly.
la, 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 you made a mistake. Most people are not like that. At least most decent native speakers are not like that. We're not going to laugh at you if you make a mistake. Some of us will be nice enough to actually point it out and correct you. So that's the first thing
Hmm.
that I think they all have in common, is their confidence level.
Confidence. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that they feel like it's always easier for them to communicate with people who are not native speakers. But then once they
Hmm.
speak to native speakers, they become a little more like, I don't want to say anything
Shy.
because I might end up,
What he may think about me. Yeah.
yes, what might this person say? Another thing that I think they are concerned about is also their accent, because
Yeah.
you know,
That was also a second question to you. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me.
yeah, the accent. So they feel like,
Hmm.
again, relating to their confidence, they feel like when they speak, the accent, that thick Indian accent comes out, and
Hmm.
they feel like, again, people might laugh at them, might make fun of them. And here's the thing, there are so many different accents in England. My
Hmm.
accent is a standard standard southern accent, but when you go to
Hmm.
northern England, you hear a completely different accent.
Hmm.
So in terms of that, again, it's not necessarily something that they need to be concerned about. but it's something that they want to work on. Some of them will say, oh, I want to speak like a British person. And I'm
So it
just
is
like,
okay to have a normal accent, right? Native accent is fine.
yes, there's nothing wrong with
Okay.
it. I mean, it's the same
Hmm.
thing in America. In America, you have yeehaw, giddy up, cowboy accent. And you've got like, oh my God, I'm totally from Beverly Hills accent. There's so many different accents, but for some reason, a lot of people are really concerned about that. And I'm just like, it really doesn't matter. You don't have to try and sound British, and you don't have to try and sound American. As long as you can speak well, we will understand you. Trust me.
Okay. And one more thing, there's a problem in Indian speakers that I have noticed being a teacher. And they are
Mhm.
having a lot of fillers in their speech. Fillers like saying something like this in their
Mm,
speech. So,
yeah.
what do you think how we can work on that?
Fillers are very normal.
Okay,
And
so it is normal to happen, right?
yes, although like for me,
Mm-hmm,
I'm a native speaker, so I tend not to use fillers often. But let's say, for
mm-hmm,
example, you asked me a question that I wasn't prepared for. Chances are I'm
mm-hmm,
going to go, well, as I'm thinking. And so it's
mm-hmm.
very normal, again, because English is not their first language. So they are
Exactly.
trying to translate what they're thinking in their native tongue into English. And so
Mm-hmm,
it's normal for them to say, uh, although, they might find it annoying. For me as a
mm-hmm,
teacher, I completely understand that. So I don't, hold it against them. And again, it's perfectly normal because again, if I'm having a conversation with a friend, sometimes I might go, yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah, it's perfectly normal. And again, nothing to be concerned about. But if that is something students want to work on, um, what I would recommend is doing a lot of reading
Okay, so
because
reading helps with fillers, right?
yes,
Mm-hmm,
because when you read particularly a lot of like a lot of Shakespeare, like
mm-hmm,
Jane Austen, Agatha Christie, old English books, that
mm-hmm.
helps to kind of like introduce your brain to a whole different level of English because then
Okay,
when you're speaking, your brain will start automatically throwing a lot of information at you. And so you won't need to necessarily go, you just, it will just naturally start to flow. So reading, in my opinion, is very helpful to curb fillers. But of course, again, it's not a major issue. Another thing that I would recommend for students, that I always recommend for students, is pick 3 words every week.
mm-hmm,
Choose three
mm-hmm.
words and use those 3 words. Practice using those 3 words, 3 words that you are not familiar with. So practice using
Mm-hmm.
those 3 words on a weekly basis. So like this week, you could choose, I don't know, onomatopoeia and biography and something like that, and try to
Mm-hmm.
form sentences with those words and use them as much as you can in conversation, because then you are introducing yourself to a whole new level of vocabulary, and you're also
Okay,
practicing with those words, and so that will also help you with engaging more fluently in conversation. That's just my
okay.
opinion.
That
Yeah.
that's really helpful. That's really helpful for all of us.
Yeah. Any more
Okay,
questions?
so it was really nice. No, no, no. It was really a nice conversation. You almost helped me with everything, all the questions that I had in my mind. So really,
Oh,
thanks a lot.
you're welcome. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you, and I hope you stay safe
Thank you, thank you. Same
and
to you,
stay
ma'am.
well.
You too.
All right. Take
Okay,
care.
okay. Bye.
Bye.